Hello there everyone, it's Carol from the Crafty Emporium. So I was searching through some of my stash the other day, as you do, and I came across these little money envelopes that I've got, and when I turned them over, the glue has gone like this for the sticky on the back, and I was like, ugh. So I don't want to use these in my journals because these would be actually quite difficult to decorate up, and so I came up with a little plan. So I push these bits to one side, I made these little mini money envelope journals. So I'll just quickly show you through one. So I did it with a seam binding closure, and then added little pockets, and then I cut the envelopes open at the end to make them into little pockets where I added a tag. Added some extra little bits of paper, little pockets. There's a tag inside each of the envelope pockets. Added some coffee dyed paper. Decorated another envelope, another tag. So these are ideal for just having in your handbag and just writing some little mini memories in, I thought. If you're going on a trip somewhere and you just want to keep a collection of all the different little bits and pieces that you've collected along the way. So that was that one. And then this one I've made slightly more vintage. But I have to say, it was a great way of using up loads of my scraps. So again, it's got all the little tags in. Excuse me. Some of them I didn't even decorate up. I just drew some faux stitching on there so that you could stick a picture on there or do some writing on it. This one's got a little flip up. The tag in there. So for me, it was a great way of using up these little envelopes that I didn't like very much. That one's got a flip page, and using up some of the scraps from out of my really big scrap bag. So I'm going to show you quickly how to make one of these. I'm not going to show you how to decorate it up. I will a little bit, but not, to the extent of it being finished. So basically I use 6 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I used my, where's it gone? There we go. Used my Tombow glue. And the first one, I pushed the flap backwards and just creased it. And then I'm going to turn this one, glue, flap side up with the open pocket bit there. And I'm going to stick this flap onto here and this flap onto the back here, okay? So I'm going to place some glue on this flap on the one on the left. And then because this is folded, I can now line it up. Show you close up. I can now line it up with the fold line of that flap. Okay. So that when I place glue on this folded back flap, put a little bit more on the edge. So I've now got one flap stuck onto this envelope, and if I flip it over, the flap of this envelope is now stuck onto this previous one. And then fold it in half and make sure that it all lines up nicely. Okay. So as you can see, you've now got a little mini folded page. Okay, didn't crease that one very well, did you, Carol? But you've got what I would call the nice side, which is the flat side with nothing happening on it. Then when you open it up, this is the side that's got the flap on it, so that's a little bit ugly, so to me that would want decorating. This is the nice flat side, so I don't need too much decoration on that, and this is the ugly side again with all the flaps and things on it, so I would decorate that side up. So once I've got it all folded, I'm going to cut each end off, and I'm going to cut just a mere slither. See, so just a tiny little bit to open up. And get my nail inside, there we go. To open up that side of the envelope, and I'm going to do the same on this side. So you need to produce 3 of those. So let's go through it again. So I'm placing this one down on the left hand side with this face up. This one I'm going to face the opposite way, and I'm going to fold this flap back. Okay, so I'm now going to put glue on there. I don't know why I say okay, because it's not like I can hear you answering. You go, yes, that's fine, Carol, or no, I'm not quite sure what you meant there, Carol, can you do it again? So I can't hear you saying that. But you know, we do these things, don't we? So I'm going to place that one on that crease line, and then I'm going to place glue on this little flap here. I'll flip it over so it's now on the back side of the other envelope, and then I'm going to fold them in half, make sure that my edges meet up and that it's all nice and straight. And I'm going to open it back up and just cut these ends off. Page number 2 done. One more. So flap side, back side of the envelope on the left. Fold the flap back on this one. Place glue on this flap here. Sit this one on top, lining it up with the crease line here. Then placing glue on this flap. And then flipping that over. Then folding it in half, making sure that it's all lined up. And I've now got my 3 sets of pages. Okay, I'm going to sit them on top of each other. Oh, I forgot to cut my ends off on this one. Did I cut the ends off on that one? Yes, you did. Right, and so they would sit on top of each other like that. Okay, and then you've got this little booklet. Now then, a couple of things before we go any further. Move them out the way so I don't want to get glue on them. Is that where I've cut these ends off here, on the ugly side, there's the part of the flap that closed up the envelope. And if I bring it up, you can see that because I've cut it, it's made this bit open and a bit loose. So I'm just going to go through and go and stick all of those down by just putting a tiny bit of glue on that edge and sticking it down, because otherwise if I stick paper on top of it, it will still end up flapping about. flip it over, do the other side. And as I say, you only want a tiny bit of glue on. So just a tiny little dot. Out you come. There we go. So that's that one done. And that's the other thing I like about this little mini album too, or mini journal. Is they're actually quite quick to do, and you could actually get a little bit of what do you call it? A thingy line. You know what I mean, don't you? Well, I hope you do, because I don't know. What's it called? A factory line? No. Oh, anyway, you get the idea. So you could glue up a load of these little envelopes, and you could glue them up ready. Don't have too much glue on there. Okay. Now, what I could actually do is I could add some coffee dyed pages in here, but what I don't want to do is I don't want to overfill this, because then it will end up bulging too much. So as you can see here, this one sits quite nice and flat. If I start to add loads and loads of pages in, it's going to do the alligator mouth bit, and it won't close very well. So I put just a couple of coffee dyed papers in. So as I say, I went through my scrap box and just picked out loads of different bits of papers, and you can cut them, you can rip them. So let's just take one so that I can get an idea of the length. So the width's okay. And then for the length, just rip it off there. I'm going to save that bit because I can decorate one of the pages up. So there's one. Sit my next envelope on top. And so the other type of page that I can actually add, I've got some more coffee dye paper. I'm just going to fold that over. I'm just going to trim this end off because I just want this strip of paper here. Check the length of it again. Oh, that's the right length, perfect. And I'm going to fold that in half. There we go. And then I'm just going to use my corner rounder, or my fancy corner punch I should say. I'm just going to punch those corners off. So now I've got a decorative little bit. And then that can sit on there, and then that envelope can sit on there. Now that's all the pages that I'm going to add to this, because as I say, I don't want it too bulky, and I've yet to decorate it. Now as you can see, when I fold it in half now, it becomes quite tiered. Don't worry about that so much. The next thing I want to do is my cover. So as I say, I went through my scrap bag, excuse me, and I decided to go with this blue and green theme. So as you can see, these are all my scraps. and I'd got this really long piece which just so happened to be the right width for these envelopes. So I've got it's just fractionally bigger at the top and at the bottom, but as you can see it's too long. So what I'm going to do is I want to leave a little bit of a border at this end and the same on this end. Now I could cut that off and add that as a pocket, or I could fold it over and add it as a pocket. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it on this side. So I can just get, now you can measure this if you want, but I'm just going to fold it over using the envelopes as my guide. And then I want to fold that in half. And again, just use my bone folder. Now this is quite a thick piece of card, so you don't want anything that's too thin and flimsy. And with it being decorated on the other side as well, I haven't got to decorate this side. Now if you have got a thick piece of card, but it's blank on this side, then you could decorate it by just adding either a piece of coffee dyed paper on top or some patterned paper on top of it, or even music paper. You don't have to have the pocket on the end, it's just because I've got this extra bit of card that I'm going to do that. But you can add pockets on each end if you so wish. And then I'm going to layer all of these into the centre, and I'm going to hold it like this so that it's slightly angled, and then put all my extra little bits on top. Make sure that they're centralised. Keep shifting it too much, look. Stay. There we go. And then I'm just going to use a binder clip to clip those in place. I'm still leaving it slightly bent. It just makes it easier for when I come to do the next part. Okay, and I'm going to use my pokey tool, and I'm just going to poke a hole. I've got my fingers either side of the crease so that I don't actually poke my fingers. And then I'm going to do one in the middle, one about about half an inch up, quarter of an inch, Carol, come on, half an inch up, and then half an inch down from there, thereabouts. I'm not being that precious about it. And then I'm going to use some of my thread. This is quite strong thread. And I'm going to go down that centre and leave a tail. In fact, I can just put it under the binder clip there to hold it in place. And then I'm going to flip it over and place it through that bottom hole. Flip it back over and put it through the middle. Flip it back over and put it through the top. And then finish it off. So to finish it off, this thread here at the bottom, so this thread here, I'm just going to slip it underneath there. Make sure it's not all caught up. Flip it underneath there, and then I'm going to pull it in a little bit to make sure that all the stitches are nice and tight. So I'm just pulling it away from each other, and then I'm going to tie those together by forming a loop and putting my needle through the loop twice. then just cut off those ends. Now, as I say, you could make up a batch of these, and then you've got them ready for decorating. And that is basically it. That's my little booklet. So now I can go through and I can go and decorate all these little pages. I'm going to stick that pocket bit down. So it doesn't keep flipping open on me. Now, one of the things that you need to remember when you're decorating this up, and ask me how I know, is that you need to have, if this is like directional like this is, you need to remember to keep it this way up as you're decorating it, because there's nothing worse than you suddenly decorating that side with everything directional and then finding that it's all upside down. I've done it, I know. Okay. Now, if you don't like to see this little bit here, you could add a little piece of fabric or some lace over the top of that. Now, I've got this pretty blue lace here that I thought what I could do is I could stick some on the front and then wrap it over so that it's going round the actual back as well, and it's covering over that spine. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up flat and then attach the lace. So I'm just having a look where my glue needs to go. And then put some on the edge there. And then I'm going to leave it open flat to allow that glue to dry. And then I'll fold it back over again once it's dried, because if I try to do it whilst it's still wet, you end up with a crinkle down the middle where the fold is. So I'm just going to leave that to dry flat. And then I'm going to flip it back over. So as I say, when you have a look at your little booklet, you've got this really nice flat page here, and then you've got what I call the ugly page, which is where the flaps are that are stuck down. And this is where again my scraps came into play, because you can decorate it by adding a whole piece of the paper if you wish, or if you've got tiny little bits of paper, then there's no reason why you can't layer them up . A little bit there, look. So if we have that bit there, and then you've got a nice collaged page, which is then a little bit decorative rather than it just being plain old boring envelope. So I'm just going to decorate this one up. I'm going to ink the edges of the paper just to give it again a little bit more character. Ink that one up. I think I might leave those two. So let's just think about the order that I want to glue them on. So if I take that one off, and then that one is at the bottom, but that one's underneath it. Okay, so I want to stick a little bit of that on. this one. On top there. Then I think it was that one. Yeah. Had too much glue on there. And stick that bottom bit down. I'm going to put this one on. And that's now covered over that ugly page. Okay, so I've got a little bit of collaging going on there. So I'm just going to do one more, because I can see that. I'm just going to take just a fraction off this. And again, as I say, if you want to measure, then you can do before you cut. So I'm just going to put that on there. I'm being a little bit more devil may care with this than I did when I made the other two up, because of the time with the video. But I'm hoping that you'll get the idea. Now, rather than just leaving it just purely blank like that, I could actually just rip off a tiny bit at an angle. Just add that on there. And again, it just adds that little bit more character to the page. And if I get one of the Tim Holtz paper dolls, I could actually put one of those on here to just finish off the decorating of that on the page. So then I cut again from all of my leftover scraps some tags, and I just used one of my tag punches to make it a decorative top. And then I went through and I added all my tags into the pockets, and obviously I put all my little bits of seam binding or ribbon excuse me, onto the actual tag. Now it might protrude just beyond the end of the actual cover, and again, I don't mind that. Oh, my lace folded over. There we go. So then I got some seam binding, and I just added it down the middle down there, put some glue on. Because then what I did was I decorated over the top of this, again using like the Tim Holtz paper dolls. So it just covered over the end. Sorry, I'm trying to hold that. I've got glue on my fingers. And then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. And add another bit of glue on there, and then stick that out there, cut that about there. Right, let me just get rid of this glue off my fingers. There we go. So then once I've tied this up, I can then trim it down to size. But that is the basis of the little mini money envelope journal, and go through and decorate. So I'm going to carry on decorating this now once I finish the video, but just to show you the completed ones again. So as you can see here with this seam binding, I actually wrapped it right the way around, and then I'd got some sticky flowers which I added over the top. Sticky flower here, added some of the Tim Holtz words on there, put some buttons on there. I did some faux stitching on there, so I just drew the stitching line on it. So as you can see here on this envelope, I just added a strip of graph paper and again some more of his words. This is one where I just cut a, sorry, I'm not in focus, am I? Just cut off, ripped off a little bit of decorative paper and stuck it on top, and then added a flower on top of there to just break up the plainness of the page. So I've got this area that I could write in. Added a little pocket here. This was a collaged page, so I've got 1, 2, 3 pieces of scrap paper, and then just added a little word down at the bottom. This one I just cut out a piece of graph paper, used some washi tape, put some words on there again. Again, this was another page that I covered completely, and then ripped out a piece and stuck it on again to just break up the monotony of it being a whole page. Put on a sticky flower. This one I just ripped off 3 strips of paper and glued those on, and then added some words. A little pocket on the bottom there. A little pocket on the side here. This is a piece of graph paper that I decorated up by adding it to the page, and then added another little ripped bit on there. Again, it just breaks up the monotony of it just being a purely whole page of decorated paper. Just added one of the sticky flowers. Here I just ripped up 2 pieces of paper and stuck those on, and then I have a pocket on the back there. Let's go through this one again. So here again you can see I've wrapped the seam binding right the way around, added some lace, added the Tim Holtz paper dolls on, and a ticket and some words and a little button, and on the back again the Tim Holtz doll and 2 little bus tickets. Here I've just stuck on a scrap piece of paper that I had, and then just layered up some fabric and some cheesecloth and a button, so that I can flip that up and either write on the back of the page or actually write on this music paper. This page I just did some faux stitching, added a word, piece of coffee dyed paper, just a little tiny bit of ripped music paper and a button, some more faux stitching. This one I just added a piece of music paper, some words, and cut off a little bit of a lace flower there. This one was a bigger piece of coffee dyed paper that I'd got, so I folded it in half and stuck the back side of it down, but I actually left it open, so I only stuck it around the 3 sides, so that I've actually got a secret little pocket at the top there as well. Added one of the Tim Holtz paper dolls, punched the edge of the paper, and just to break up the monotony of the plainness of this page, just added a piece of music paper on the bottom, just some words. I just put a little tiny tag on where the strings are in the middle. This one was a collection of bits of coffee dyed paper that I'd got left over, and just ripped them up and collaged them on top of each other on the page. Added the little vintage bus ticket there, but only stuck it around 2 sides, so that it's now a little tuck spot for just adding that little piece in there. This one I've just cut out a little rectangle, it's what I'd got left over, ripped off a little bit of that ledger paper I'd got left over and stuck it on top, so I can now write around the edge here and then maybe add a little picture on there. On this one, this was just a series of papers that I'd got left over, and I just stuck them on all on top of each other, and then stuck this little piece on top at the edge here so that this can flip open, so I could put a picture on here, maybe right on the back of there and right on here. This is a tiny little piece of paper that I'd got left over, and I was loath to throw it away because it got this pretty little punch bit at the bottom, so I just added it on the edge there, added a little tiny butterfly and a little tiny button, and then just a word on, and you can see it just breaks up the monotony of the page. But they were really quite quick and easy to make. So I'm going to now go and finish off decorating this little one up with all my blues and greens, and that's the basis of how you go about doing it, really. So it's up to you how you decorate it up and how much you want to put in, and then I'll make some tags for each of the pockets, and that's another one done. So that was my little mini money envelope journal. Okay, thanks very much for watching. See you soon. Bye.